Hello, Crashing Podcasts, episode 9 with the screens. But before I get talking about the screens, I just want to thank those that listened to the episode with Kian last week, a few days ago, and the episode about the Assist's latest NHS single, Life. And hope you're getting on NHS and get donating as well. I don't know how much money they raised up so far, but I'll check it out later on and I'll tell you at the end and play their latest single. But I just want to say, musicians, if there's any singer-songwriters and that listening to today's episode, I just want to say, as I advertised this on my Instagram stories, and I had a brilliant success, loads of bands been getting in touch with me, and if you're a musician, podcaster, in a band and that, just get in touch with me. And if you want to start a podcast and do a podcast interview and promote your music and promote yourself and that, I'll help you out there. And yeah, get in touch. My email is on my Instagram, and direct message me, do whatever, and there's loads of ways of getting in contact with me. So yeah, so to the screens now. This episode is hopefully promoting their second album, The Boy Who Waved to the Train. It's not on Spotify, but I'm sure, like, if you can message them on Instagram, I think it's just at the screens or something like that. I think they'll tell you later on in the episode, and they'll talk more into depth about the album later on in the episode. But I just want to say, if you want to buy a copy of their latest album, just message them, and I'm sure they can get you sorted with their second album. And yeah, hope you all enjoyed today's episode with the screens, and I'll talk to you all a bit later. Thank you.
I'm Neil, and I'm one half of the band called The Screens, who are from Essex, which is the east of London, along with Colin, who's the singer, and we've been friends since we were at school, which is when we first formed the band, with the sole idea of attracting girls. And because we couldn't get any girls, we decided that we might as well write songs instead. So that's what we did. We both had similar interests in music. We both really liked 60s artists. We liked the Zombies, we liked the Stones, the Doors, listening to parents' records, that sort of thing. So that was the inspiration for what we became. There wasn't really any one pivotal moment in my life when I decided I wanted to become a musician or a songwriter or what have you. I was born into it. My dad managed bands from when I was born, and I think for my 5th birthday he came home with a battered up old electric guitar that one of the guitarists in a band he managed had given him, and a little practice amp, and that was it. That's how I started. So obviously, I was into the bands that my dad managed at the time, so I learned to play all their songs, and I'd go to all the rehearsals, that sort of thing. But it wasn't any one specific moment that I can remember. It was more just being surrounded by music continually. The thing that inspired me to write and produce and arrange was being surrounded by young guys that were on the beginnings of their journeys as artists, with record deals, just starting out touring and what have you. And I wanted to be that. At the age of 5, I wanted to be that. So I'd listen to their songs, and then I'd try to emulate their songs. And then somewhere along the line, bizarrely, I think when I was about 8, I got a Porter studio and started recording little song ideas. I didn't have any drums, so I'd layer up guitars and then tap things to try and make, kind of rhythm things and that sort of stuff. So that was the inspiration for writing. Just watching people watching them start their journeys and wanting to be on that journey, and but just being too young. So I think I wrote and recorded my first thing on a little Portage Studio thing when I was probably about 8, something like that. So I think my first public performance would have been when I was at school at 9. And our music teacher decided that each week it would be a really good idea if he got one member of the class to stand up and talk to the rest of the class about an instrument they played. And within that class of 30, I guess, I don't know, maybe 10 of us that played instruments, all kind of mainly classical instruments: piano, violin, viola, cello, piano, that sort of stuff, clarinet. And so all the lads would get up and do their thing. And then when it came to my turn, I turned up with an electric guitar, a slightly bigger amp than the one I had when I was 9, and some pedals. And I said, look, I'm not going to talk to you about the guitar. I'm just going to play you some songs. So I just did bad renditions of Jimi Hendrix songs with feedback and screaming and all this kind of stuff. I think the only thing I missed out was setting fire to the guitar. But so I did that. That was my first gig. I thought I was Jimi Hendrix. I had one of the other lads in the class lugging my amp around for me. The only thing I think I missed out was, as I was setting fire to it and spending an hour in the dressing room before and after. But apart from that, I just loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I knew at that point that playing the guitar is half of it, maybe not even half. Performing is the real goal, and something I took every opportunity to do from that day onwards. I don't think there's a musician alive on this planet that doesn't feel nerves before they go on stage. I think it doesn't matter if you're playing the Village Hall or you're playing Wembley Stadium. You're there to entertain. There's things that could go terribly wrong, and that's where the nerves come from. You're bound to be nervous. There's a good friend of mine who recently wrote and produced the album for Dave, which went to number 1 in various countries around the world. And Dave asked him, when he was asked to do the Brits, he asked my friend whether or not he'd play keyboards with him. So despite the fact that my friend's got an amazing reputation as a songwriter and a producer, even he was terrified. And admittedly, there's maybe 6 million people, watching that programme. But so I think everyone feels nerves, and yet somehow, once again, back to that Village Hall or Wembley Stadium, the feeling you get when you come off of stage, having done your best, and even though you've made mistakes, an audience comes to be entertained, and providing you give your best, and a lot of the time as well, don't forget they've paid money to actually see you. They've not just stumbled upon you as an artist. They've actually, seen the gig advertised. They've paid money. They've come along. They're there because they want to have a good time. And I think the difference between live and studio is studio has to be right. There's no excuses for making mistakes. But live is about sharing an experience with an audience. You play the song, they recognise it, they sing along with it. Maybe you change the arrangement in accordance with what they're doing. You extend a middle 8 section, you do extra choruses at the end. You play with the audience, not just for them. And I think one of the most amazing feelings is coming off stage knowing that you connected with that audience. There's no greater feeling for me personally. I think it's the reason that so many musicians prefer being in a live environment rather than in a studio. So our second album, which is called The Boy Who Waved at Trains, which was out last week, it feels like we've really grown up as a band. From the first album, where we were just so excited about the prospect of recording 10 songs, and we just wrote 10 songs in a particular style that we like, 60s influence, Small Faces, that sort of thing. It's The Doors. The second album, when we decided we were going to write it, there was criteria that we lay out, and the criteria was, firstly, it wouldn't be a vanity project, like we were recording an album for a potential audience. That's what you do with the first album. For a second album, we thought there needs to be an audience waiting to hear this, because if there's not, It's just Colin and himself getting in the studio, recording something that nobody really wants. So what we did was we did a Kickstarter campaign, and we asked people to pre-order the album. We said it's going to be about a year away. This is the rough idea behind it, and if you want to hear more from the Screens, then pre-order a copy now. In a year's time, it'll arrive. So that's what we did. We were really lucky because we were desperate to do it, and we got sufficient people that pre-ordered the album. So that started the recording process. And the second detail that was really important to us was that it had to have a point to it. So many albums are just a collection of songs. There's no cohesion between the first song and the last song. And so we decided if we were going to do a second album, there had to be a story behind it, in the same way as bands like The Who would write an album and it was a story. So Quadrophenia, as an example, or Tommy as well, for that matter. And so the first song was the first part of the story, and the last song was the end of the story. So that's what we wanted to do. So that's the easy bit. We then had to find a story that we thought was worth telling. And just around the time that we were looking for something, a good friend of ours was just about to leave home and head off to university to start a media degree. And he decided it was the right time to tell his parents he was gay, because he thought it would give them space. If he was going off to university for 3 months, they'd have time to kind of adjust. But it didn't work out like that at all. His father rejected him completely, rejected the whole concept that a son of his could possibly be gay. And so it sent our friend into a spiral, which culminated in him attempting suicide 3 times and eventually being sectioned. I think the pain of being rejected by someone that's supposed to love you really hit him hard and made him feel as though perhaps something that he was doing was wrong. And Colin and myself thought about this, and we couldn't believe that in 2019 such archaic thoughts still existed in adults and grown-ups in Western society, where they considered being gay as being wrong. And so that was the beginning of our story for the album, The Boy That Waved at Trains. It inspired the story. And because we're 60s inspired in our sound, we took the story back to sort of late 50s, London, just post-war, when it was the point in history where Britain single-handedly, allegedly, had won the war against the Germans. It was the beginning of a new dawn. And so in a land of positivity, things like homosexuality was still illegal. So we thought that was a really good place to base our story. So not only would the character in our story be a 15-year-old boy who's rejected by his family for being gay and being thrown out, it would reflect the fact that in London, despite the fact that it's been going on since Jesus was a boy, it was still regarded as illegal. So that's why that was the beginning of our story. And then we took a real story, turned it into a fictitious story. And so what we did was we imagined what might have happened to that character through his life. So we had him thrown out of his house in East London, living in the West End. And our story is about his life. It's about how it started and where it ends up.
Now we're going to play the song The Boy Who Waved at Trains.
His letter came back yesterday, addressed to Fahrenheit. runs cold. Another time you waste waving at trains. Who guessed that things could get so serious, so mysterious, that we complain? Who guessed that things could get so serious, so mysterious, that we complain? Dilly boys, we changed our name. A uniform we hung behind the door. But nothing matters in this world. Men can sing and dance like girls, and you and I will wave at trains no more. Who guessed that things could get so serious, so mysterious, that we complain? Who guessed that things could get so serious, so mysterious, that we complain? Who guessed that things could get so serious, so mysterious, that we complain?
We had a plan at the beginning of 2020 that would release the album in spring and follow that up with gigs and festivals across the summer. But in light of the fact that coronavirus has changed the world completely forever, it means that I think most acts aren't going to be playing live for quite some time, and that reflects on us as well. Any gigs and festivals that we had lined up, they've all been cancelled. I don't know whether or not that's going to happen again this year or not, but please God it will. But who knows? So in the short term, no, there's no live shows yet, which is really, it's frustrating, but totally understandable. You know, people's safety comes first. But maybe we might do some online gigs. We've been talking about that. And so, yeah, that's a possibility. But right now, it's not a priority. So if you like what you heard and you want to get a copy of the album, it's available on CD or vinyl from our website, which is www.thescreens.org, or our Bandcamp page, which is thescreens1.bandcamp.com. It's not on Spotify. We decided at the beginning of this album that, despite the fact that the first album's available on Spotify, we didn't want to put this one on there. We didn't want it carved up song by song and stuck on people's playlists. It doesn't make sense on this album. I think also what's really important is there's a certain group of people that took a leap of faith with us, the people that backed our Kickstarter campaign and pre-ordered the album before hearing a note, before we'd written a note. And so to put it on Spotify straight away kind of devalues their trust in us as a band. So we think that they deserve time to have the album exclusively, and then a bit further down the line, if we think that, you know, it's sold as many on CD and vinyl as it's going to sell, then we'll look at Spotify. But let's be honest, every single time somebody plays a Screen song or any other band of our kind of status on Spotify, all you're doing is you're putting more food in Ed Sheeran's mouth. Nothing against Ed Sheeran, he's a lovely fella, I'm sure, and he writes some really good songs, but it benefits the huge acts and it doesn't benefit the small acts. And so from that perspective, we worked really hard on this album. We put a lot of time and energy and effort into it. Do we really want to put more money in Ed Sheeran's bank account and encourage him to write more songs like Galway Girl? No, not really. I read this brilliant thing on one of the socials the other day and it really stuck with me. I don't know which one it was. But it was referring to the fact that we're currently in a lockdown zone and it's so restrictive. It's preventing us from doing so many really important things. And the point of the post was that most of the things we do aren't in fact that busy. We make ourselves busy in society now and we presume that everything we're doing is so busy. I'm not sure what sitting in Starbucks having a coffee means to anybody or why that would be classified as busy, but there we go. So this guy, who's a DJ at a radio station, he said this is the ultimate opportunity for you to sit down with vinyl or with CD or with just an album. I mean, it can be a download of an album, it makes no difference, and listen to an artist. Go on the journey with the artist. Artists that make albums that, like we've tried to do with The Boy Who Waved at Trains, take you on a journey. You go with the artist through the story that they're trying to tell, or even musically, the development of it. You know, the bands like maybe Led Zeppelin would go and lock themselves in the studio for 6 months and they would write the album in that environment. And it's all of a sudden, it's not just called a record because it used to be a 12-inch black vinyl thing. It was called a record because it was a record of what happened when that group of musicians went into that studio for that period of time and created that piece of work. It's a record of the work that they created. So that's what I've been doing with my downtime. I've been locked away, just picking up records that I've not listened to for such a long time and listening to them, sitting down, trying to go on the journey with the artist and just enjoying music for what it is. Listen to an artist in context. They've put maybe 6 months into making that album. Give them half an hour and just listen to it and enjoy it. Don't listen to playlists. Don't listen to playlists. They're soulless things. Listen to an artist's body of work and you'll get so much from it. I'm Neil from The Screens. Thanks so much for listening to me bore you senseless for the past God knows how long. I'd really like you to listen to our album if you get time. It's called The Boy Who Waved at Trains. It's by The Screens, and you can get it at www.thescreens.org, or you can get it at thescreens1.bandcamp.com. Okay, thanks a lot. Take care. Keep safe.
You and I, under vanilla skies, watching the world go by in deeper shades of blue. Rainbow high over your bridge of sighs. Girl, I just can't describe how much I'm missing you. And Jennifer Jones, I want you back. You turned my whole world paintbox back. You stole my heart and then
thank you, Neil, for joining me on Crashing In for the podcast today. I really appreciate it. Have to say, the album The Boy Who's at the Train is a very interesting story, to be honest. Quite like, it's true, not many bands actually go into stories with their albums and that, so it's nice to hear that quadrophenia element in the album, to be fair. So people, you can access their music on Bandcamp. It's I think the price of the album is on the website, and as he says, you can access their website and go on their Instagram. The link is in their bio, so if that makes it easier. So thank you for to the Screens for joining me on today's podcast, and hope you all do well with your second album. Thank you. Now I just want to say about the assist. I think that so far they made up to £755. So get on the assist page and get donating to the NHS for their new single Life. I'm going to play their new single Life now on the podcast. Thank you to the assist as well for giving me permission to play this song on the podcast. It's a brilliant track. And see you all on the next episode, everyone, and stay safe, stay home, and get doing something creative whilst there's nothing to do, and that whilst you're all in isolation. So see you all in the next episode. I can't confirm who's on the next episode, but it will be confirmed later on in the week. See you all out. Have a great weekend.
So much space to fill, so desperate to hurt less, to live for the thrill. Those times we're uncertain, it's friendships we gauge. The unity form will keep those demons away. We're working 80% of our life, which leaves us precious little time to do all the things we like. Money can't buy time, but it's essential for this mountain we climb. We wish for Monday to pass, with hopes that Tuesday's as fast. Thank God it's Wednesday at last, just 2 more days of this graft. Oh look, it's Friday today, we wished our whole week away. We must not compromise our whole damn life by living this way. I try to make my life easy, but then I get too bored. The trick to give your life meaning is to challenge yourself more. Calm down, don't make a sound. No matter how you feel, you'll come round to the force that I preach within my melody. To give your life meaning is to challenge yourself more. I try to make my life easy, but I don't tend to go. The trick to give your life meaning is to know when to let go. No matter how you feel, you'll come round to the force that I preach within. I try to make